The government of Trinidad and Tobago was overthrown. The Prime Minister and members of the cabinet are under arrest.
This is Trinidad and Tobago Television. We are being allowed to make another news bulletin. The Imam Abu Bakr wants you to know that the police headquarters in downtown Port-of-Spain has been gutted by fire.
This is a story about a poet-lawyer duo turned musician, a small island nation in the Caribbean, the Islamic State, and a U.S. Army Psychological Operations team. Trinidad and Tobago is a small island nation in the Caribbean, population 1.3 million. A quick internet search will show vibrant images of carnival celebrations, happy revelers, and an idyllic paradise. It also has the distinct honor of being the only nation in the Western Hemisphere to ever experience an Islamic coup attempt. In 1990, this man, Yassin Abu Bakr, and his Islamic radical group stormed parliament and held the prime minister and legislators hostage. Poorly planned and based on a belief of public support that never materialized, it was no surprise that their coup failed and they gave up after about a week. What is surprising was that all of the participants were set free following a surrender agreement. For the next 20 years, they were free to continue plotting against the government, all the while spreading messages of violence and hate. Fast forward to early 2011. As the Islamic State began to emerge out of the ashes of what was known as Al-Qaeda in Iraq, and by 2013, the organization was largely rebuilt and featured an international recruiting operation. Through its online publication Dabiq and teams of skilled recruiters, the international terror organization was gaining power and influence. Before ISIS ever set foot in Trinidad and Tobago, the nation was already a fertile breeding ground for discontent and radicalization. Endemic corruption and poverty, high youth unemployment, and long-standing ethno-religious tensions created conditions where the nation's youth were already very vulnerable to radicalization from criminal gangs. So when the Islamic State's recruiters came with a promise of wealth, glory, and a utopian Islamic society, Trinidad and Tobago's youth were ripe for the picking. In a short period of time, Trinidad and Tobago would become the leading provider of recruits for the Islamic State in the Western Hemisphere. Enter U.S. Special Operations and Psychological Operations. As the problem in Trinidad and Tobago worsened, the U.S. government recognized the need to establish a more robust presence in the country in order to counter the rising threat of Islamic radicalization amongst the youth. But that's easier said than done. How does someone go about tackling such a problem?
Within the first week of arriving in country, the PSYOP, Civil Affairs, and Special Forces elements met to analyze the previous team's successes, discuss our operational goals, and develop a mutually supporting approach to disrupt VEO radicalization and recruiting. We also synchronized with our Department of State partners to develop long-term and sustainable solutions. Together, they helped us develop and fund the initiative, as well as identify important local influencers who could assist with cultural insight and message delivery to fight extremist groups from within. As Army Special Operations Forces, we excel at building trust with partners and empowering them to succeed. We never go into battle alone. We work by, with, and through them to amplify effects against terrorist networks and other adversaries. We developed a counter-VEO recruitment campaign designed to increase public denouncements of ISIS and prominent gangs in Trinidad. Collaborated with national media outlets to disseminate over 1,800 radio spots, 180 TV ads, 2 music videos, developed 10 counter-VEO recruiting organizations, and amplified all of this across social media. We also held over 70 culturally significant community events in prisons and other locations where radicalization was occurring. Ultimately, each of these events prompted demographics most vulnerable to radicalization and recruitment to denounce VEOs and violent extremism overall. This collaborative counter-VEO messaging effort resulted in a 1,386% increase in the public denouncement of VEOs over a 12-month period, a severe drop-off in recruitment efforts, and a major disruption of VEO networks. As masters of influence, the Department of Defense's only codified influence capability, PSYOP forces epitomize the core of modern information warfare. PSYOP, synchronized with other RSOF elements, expose the dark, misleading, and predatory nature of ISIS, as well as empowered, community-driven responses. We forged an environment inhospitable to violent extremism across Trinidad, aggressively dismantled terrorist networks, and actively promoted regional stability alongside our great Caribbean allies.